Hi again. Thank you for joining me for my third podcast. Today I want to talk to you about something that was stated in the big book that really caught my attention years ago. The statement is, our thinking is the crux of our problem. And that really resonated with me. I had been going to counselors for decades. I'd been reading every book I could get my hands on to try to feel better. And unfortunately, it only made me ultimately feel worse. So what I now know is true is that the same thing that the alcoholics said was true about drinking, which is that it's something that gave them some relief in the beginning, but it turned like a boomerang in flight and all but cut them to ribbons. And that's the way my quote-unquote thinking worked for me too. In the beginning, when I was reading a lot of books, going to therapy, it felt like I was onto something. It felt like this was going to be helpful to me. And in some small ways, it was. But it, in fact, turned like a boomerang in flight and all but came back and all but cut me to ribbons. And what that ended up feeling like when I hit my bottom was that my thinking was now an obsession, and a painful, painful obsession. And I was analyzing everything, dissecting everything. I definitely had what I've heard referred to as the paralysis of analysis. I really had believed, just like the alcoholics, that they thought drinking was going to fix their problem. It did in the beginning, make things feel better. And I thought my thinking, my analyzing, my dissecting, my researching, my reading every book I could get my hands on, dissecting my childhood, dissecting his childhood, that was going to be my solution. That was going to be my path out of hell. Well, it turned in flight and it became my path deeper into hell, just like drinking for the alcoholic. And if you are like me, it might do the same for you. It may already be doing the same for you, and it may be confusing because I was so convinced, and there's a lot of people trying to convince us. It's a whole industry that the more we think, better will be. The more we analyze, the better will be. That the only way out is through. And what I realized is that through meant deeper into my misery, deeper into my pain. And I wasn't a slouch. I had tried everything that was suggested. I had even tried reevaluation counseling, therapy, marriage counseling, all kinds of things. I even went to ACA meetings and tried to look at my family of origin and all of that work. And I just, at one point, I started to realize that it had become part of the problem instead of the solution for me. And I had to hit a really horrible bottom around that, where I was completely obsessed, and it turned into self-obsession, self-consciousness, self-doubt, self-loathing, but mostly just self. And I was always thinking about Tina. And that was a very painful existence. And then when I hit my bottom around all of that, I realized, and I talked about this in the prior podcast, that I needed to get out of self, not further into self, to live a happy, joyous, and free life. And that doesn't mean I'm ignoring things. It means that I have now a purpose and a reliable connection to my source, to my answers, to all of those things that make one's life worth living. And what I realized is that for me, action was more important than thinking. that I needed to take positive, constructive action. I've also heard it described this way: God is good, orderly direction. I wasn't meant to sit and analyze. I was being used by my thinking instead of using my thinking to inform my actions. And that's when things turned around. When I started to begin to take positive, constructive action. And for me, that was getting a sponsor and working the 12 steps. And that may be what you need too, only you can decide that. But for me, that was very, very helpful. But it also helped me learn the underlying principles of why that way of living was so destructive and was so painful, and what the way out was, and what the way toward a positive, constructive life was. And so, yes, I've heard phrases like the paralysis of analysis and stinking thinking, and those were all true for me. So now I have learned how to use my thinking to inform my actions each day, but not to allow my thinking to run the show or to use me or to spin me out into an obsessive storm. And the first step in doing that is I have a practice in the morning where I do a written meditation. And the first thing I do in that written meditation is to write down a few things that I'm grateful for. And I say, thank you, Mom and Papa, for my wonderful life. And I write down several things I'm grateful for. And then the next thing that I do is I jot down things that I'm not quite sure how to handle that day. And just a little bullet list, a simple bullet list. And then here's the really new and helpful thing that I learned. I leave those. It's like when I jot down that little list, I leave those to my higher power, and 100% know that when there's a right time to take action around those things, I will get an intuitive thought or decision. And one of my favorite 12-step speakers, Sandy Beach, look him up on YouTube, he's great, says, yeah, then I go to a movie, and before I go, I ask my higher power, I ask God for inspiration, and I go to a movie, and in the middle of that movie at some point, doodle-a-doot, up pops a fully formed solution or next step. And that is a whole new way of using our thinking instead of our thinking using us. We are now on a different plane, a plane of inspiration instead of the plane of dissecting and analyzing and rehearsing and all of those things that ended up being a very painful experience for me. And then I also look at my calendar in that morning activity, that morning discipline, and see the things that I actually have on my calendar. Those are the things that I'm going to take action around while my higher power is formulating next steps for me, if any, on those things that I'm not quite sure how to handle. And those things start to come as I practice that trust in my own connection to inspiration. It starts to develop. I'm pretty sure you've heard of the concept of a God box. I also like to use this analogy of the little kid's piggy bank, where there's a way to put money in, but there's no way to get it out. So that's one of the ways that parents would help their kids earn money, is they would buy them these piggy banks, and there's no way to get the money out. At some point when they're of an age or a maturity level where they can make more informed, appropriate decisions, they get to break that piggy bank. So I call that kind of a thing a God box. So when there's something that I'm struggling with or that's taking my precious energy away from now, which is really all I have, I will write it down in my journal, and it's like the God box. It's like that piggy bank. It's once it's in there, I don't get to take it out. I don't have access to it anymore. I am completely trusting that this is definitely a problem that I've proven to myself that I can't think my way out of, and that now I've turned it over to something larger than myself to help me with. And I'm going to trust 100% that when the time is right, I am going to get an inspiration around that quote unquote problem. And many times what I find is that my perspective entirely shifts in that process of trusting that there's a different way. It's kind of like just entering into this radical notion that there might be something beyond my crazy brain, my thinking, my analyzing, my dissecting, that can begin to guide me. And over these years, I can now say, these last 10 years, that I have this reliable connection with this source that helps to guide me and direct me around the next indicated thing. And what's interesting is it's not often about, it's never about, this person or that person is mad at me or doesn't like me or doesn't approve. It's about, how can I be more fully me? It has nothing to do with people pleasing. It has nothing to do with approval seeking. Nothing. It has everything to do with how can I bring the person that I am into this 24 hours and manifest whatever it is that my intuition, my inner guide, my higher power is wanting to help the world with through me. So that's another perfect time to bring back that quote, intelligent agent of God's ever-expanding creation. We have a very small, kind of damage control view of life when we get to our bottom. It's like we're just kind of on edge and trying to manage everything. But God has a much bigger view of our life. We are here to be helpful. We are here to be useful. We are here to be an intelligent agent of God's ever-expanding creation. And the next podcast is going to be on this thinking bigger idea, that we've been thinking too small. We've been all about damage control. And what this is really about is stepping into the glorious plan and purpose that our higher power, that our source has in mind for us each 24 hours. So thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. And please let me know how this goes for you, some of your inspirations.